Hi everyone, we are in lesson 1 of Energy and Telecommunications, AC circuits. Today we are going to explain point 1.9 of the index, which is energy. The electrical companies need to measure the energy we consume in order to charge us with an invoice. As you know, there are two types of power, active and reactive, and subsequently there will be two types of energy. The energy is defined as the integral of the product of the instantaneous power by the time over a particular period of time. So here you have the expression for the active and the reactive power. And pay attention that the units are also different. The active energy would be expressed in watts per hour, while the reactive energy will be expressed in volt-ampere reactive per hour. Here in this image, you can see the energy demand curve in Spain for the 8th January 2019. So you can distinguish among three curves. The yellow one represents the real demand, the green one the foreseen demand, and the red one represents the planned demand. Notice that the planned demand is a discrete curve. There you have a discrete curve, while the curves in green and yellow, they are continuous curves. So the program demand is a discrete curve which is obtained by adding the power of all the power plants that are generating electrical energy at a particular moment during the day. In terms of geometry, the energy can be defined as the area under the instant power curve. So that is the same as we have expressed before with this integral you have here. Point 2.0 of the lesson is called Introduction to Single-Phase Electrical Fees. So the fee that is paid by a user depends on several aspects. First, it depends on the voltage that we have, which could be high or low voltage. Remember that only big industries are supplied at high or medium voltage, while household consumers, they are supplied at low voltage. The maximum power that we have available in our installation is another aspect that affects the fee that we must pay. Another aspect is the use of energy. It is not the same as if we are talking about general use or, for example, illumination, agricultural irrigation, time of use, or service interruption. The power factor, as you know, it indirectly quantifies the amount of reactive power in a particular installation. So we are going to have an extra cost if our power factor is lower than 0.95 in Spain. Okay? All electrical feeds in our country, they have a binomial structure that is consists of a fixed cost, which is based on the maximum power available, and a variable cost that depends on the consumed energy. So here you have the expression that takes into consideration the component of invoicing by power, which is the first one, and the component of invoicing by consumed energy, which is variable as we have said. In some cases, there will be discounts or penalties that will be applied due to different aspects. One of them is a time discrimination. You know that the price of the energy is not the same at different times during the day, and we have to distinguish between peak hours in which the consume is very high because everybody has a high demand, electrical demand, and other times during the day. Another different discount or penalty could be applied depending on other reasons, such as, for example, the power factor that we have mentioned before, or the interruptibility. That concept means that you have to pay an extra to guarantee that you are a priority user. For example, there are some industries where a temporal disconnection of electrical energy can cause very serious economical losses. On the other hand, household consumers, they usually don't have that extra cost associated with interruptibility. Seasonality means that the price of the electrical energy is also variable in different seasons during the year. For example, we can mention the peaks in the demand associated with the demand of heating or cooling in winter or summer, respectively. Here we have a graph that represents the way in which the fee is defined. First, we have a power term, that is the maximum power that we have hired, and we have an energy term, which is the consumed energy, and we are talking about both the active and the reactive consumed energy. In that term is affected by time discrimination and seasonality. Both of them are going to condition the energy term. Both the power term and the energy term define the base bill that also depends on other aspects such as the equipment hiring. That means that there are some elements of the electrical installation which are property of the electrical company. For example, the consume counter. We have also taxes that will depend on the particular country in which we are having our electricity service, and also the reactive energy and the interruptibility are going to affect the base bill. Then we will need to add the value added tax, which is the IVA in our country, and that will define the full bill. Another concept is the voluntary price for small consumers. There you have some sources of interest, for example, the website of Red Eléctrica de España, where you can find the consumed energy for each day of the year and a lot of very interesting information that you could find in that website. Another concept is the social tariff. That is a discount of 25% with respect to the correspondent voluntary price for small consumers. So we have some new requirements that were applied on April 2018, and we need to comply with the first requirement alone of all the others to have that right to have the social tariff. The first one is to have large family. The second one is that we have a contract with a reference company. That social tariff can only be applied to first residents and to contracts under 10 kilowatts of installed power. There are also low-income restrictions that depend, the quantity of those restrictions depends on the children in a particular family. Another modification of 2020 is going to change to a single household tariff that considers time discrimination. There you have the definition of different periods during the day, and we can distinguish between horario valle and horario punta, and also with horario llano. So we can choose between two different values of the power. There is another time discrimination that only distinguishes between horario valle and horario punta. In this table, you can see the magnitude of electrical demands in different regions of Spain during the different months of the year. And in this image, you have a real electrical fee for a particular consumer, where you have all the information that you receive with your particular fee from an electrical company that in this case is Viesgo. With this, we have seen points 1.9 and point 2 of the first lesson of the subject. See you in the next video.